Hey guys, Harrison here, and the Olympus 60mm macro lens is one of 4 macro lenses available for Micro Four Thirds. So is it any good, or should you just check out some of the other options instead? Let's get into it and find out. So let's start with the build of the lens. It's a full plastic body, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. The lens certainly doesn't feel flimsy, and it definitely helps to keep this lens very small and very, very light. But on the other hand, I also wouldn't be surprised if this lens just got completely destroyed from even just a small drop. It's got a nice big focus ring up the front, which is great for doing little adjustments when you're right up close taking macro shots, but it is a focus by wire ring. You'll also see that closer to the lens mount on the lens, there's a focus distance scale and a focus limiter switch. So the scale is used to tell you where through the focusing range of the lens you're focused right now, which is pretty handy considering the focusing range on this lens is massive. And the limiter switch is used to select only which part of the range that you want to focus within. So there are 4 options that you can choose between on the focus limiter switch. You've got 40cm to infinity, 19cm to infinity, 19cm to 40cm, and 1:1. So the 19cm to infinity option lets you focus through the entire range of the lens, and then the 1:1 option right up the top lets you quickly zoom in all the way to 1:1 because this is a 1:1 macro lens. So the other 2 settings are used to limit the focusing range of the lens to either more standard distances between 40cm to infinity, or to more macro distances from 19cm to 40cm. So I normally have the lens set to one of those 2 options, mostly because it actually really speeds up the autofocusing of the lens, just because it's only got to search through a certain part of the focusing range rather than the whole thing. And in fact, that's pretty much the whole point of this limiter dial, just to speed up the autofocus so you can just select the part of the range you want to focus between. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of time hunting back and forth through the whole range. Alright, so enough specs though. How does the lens actually perform? Well, personally, I gotta say, the lens performs extremely well. At macro distances, where I imagine you're probably going to spend at least a decent amount of time considering you're buying a macro lens, the lens does perform just incredibly well. At f2.8, this lens lets in tons of light, and it's already incredibly sharp, even wide open. And then as you stop it down, maybe to get some more depth of field, it just gets even sharper. The full frame equivalent focal length of 120mm lets you get very close when you're shooting at macro distances, and even just at more standard distances, it acts as a pretty good telephoto prime lens. The f2.8 aperture lets in loads of light and also gives you a really nice depth of field, and it also lets you shoot with a faster shutter speed so you can freeze any action that might be in your frame. And here are just a few other little things that I wanted to throw together just to quickly mention about this lens. So first of all, this lens is weather sealed according to Olympus, although I haven't had a chance to test that. But that means that if you are using a weather sealed camera body as well, there'll be nothing to stop you from taking macro shots, rain, hail, or shine. Also, because this is a Micro Four Thirds lens, you can use this on any camera with a Micro Four Thirds mount. So as you might have noticed, I've been using the Olympus 60mm macro with my Panasonic G7, and it's almost as good as just having a native lens on the camera. So the autofocus just isn't quite as fast with this lens as it is when I'm using native lenses on my Panasonic G7, and I reckon this might just be a combination of it being a longer focal length, and also because it is an Olympus lens, it can't use Panasonic's DFD technology. You need a Panasonic lens on a Panasonic body for them to talk to each other and focus faster, pretty much. Not to say that it's slow or anything, it certainly autofocuses fast enough for almost anything I need, but it's just not quite as snappy as the native lenses. And also, just to quickly mention video with this lens, I hardly end up using this lens for any of my videos, although maybe I should use it a bit more, but even for photography, a macro lens is a pretty niche product, and I just get the feeling that if you're only going to be doing video, then a macro lens is probably only a good choice for a very small amount of people. If you are looking for something for macro video, then I've got a video up on macro tubes, which are a great way to turn just your normal camera lenses into macro lenses, which are probably a better idea if you're just going to be doing macro video, and certainly a cheaper and easier way to give macro photography or videography a quick try. And finally, my only complaint with this lens is that it does not, for some reason, come with a lens hood. Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. But seriously, after spending anywhere from maybe $300 up to and maybe beyond $500, Olympus expects you to shell out another $50 for the lens hood for this lens. But there is a bit of a solution if you own any Panasonic lenses, which do mostly come with a lens hood. You can use your Panasonic lens hood on your Olympus lens. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So after all that, is the Olympus 60mm macro lens worth the $500 plus price tag? Well, if you don't need a lens hood, and if you're serious about macro photography on a Micro Four Thirds camera, then I would have to say that yes, it is definitely worth it. It's super sharp and lets in loads of light, but most importantly, it just lets you get those incredible super close-up macro shots that you just cannot get with any other Micro Four Thirds lens. If you're just looking for a telephoto lens though, then while this lens would definitely do a great job, you're probably better off going with either something like the Sigma 60mm f2.8, which I've heard isn't as sharp as this lens, which is to be expected, but it is also much cheaper at around $200, or otherwise I'd just recommend you go for another Micro Four Thirds telephoto zoom. I just gotta say though that I genuinely do love this lens. It is an incredible lens, and it was the lens that I would hands down recommend to anyone looking to get into macro photography on a Micro Four Thirds camera. That just about wraps up this review though. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in picking up this lens, the Olympus 60mm macro, I'll have a link to it in the video description where you can go and pick it up. And also while you're there, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It would also be great if you could check out my Instagram page, where I've actually posted quite a number of photos that I've taken with the Olympus 60mm macro lens. So if you want to check out some samples from the lens, then definitely check out my Instagram account. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on this lens, so don't forget to leave those in the comments section, or maybe even if you've just got some future ideas for some videos, leave those in there as well. Apart from that though, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.